The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood has lost its quietest giant. We're taking you to Middleburg, Virginia. It's Sunday, February 15, 2026. A 360-acre horse farm has fallen silent.
Yeah.
The world knew him as the consigliere, the colonel, the judge. But as news breaks of Robert Duvall's death at the age of 95, a different story is emerging.
It's not the story we thought we knew.
Not at all. It's not just a legacy of roles, but a final, shocking admission about what actually mattered to him in a career that spanned, 7 decades.
It really creates this incredible dissonance, doesn't it? The public is mourning one version of the man, but the man himself was living a completely different truth.
Exactly. Welcome to StarScope Report. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Jamie.
Our mission is to uncover the Hollywood drama, the industry shakeups, and, the real stories behind the fame. And today we are diving deep into the life, the death, and the confessions of Robert Duvall.
And we have a massive stack of sources to get through today, from the breaking obituaries in the New York Times to some really deep-cut interviews from Film Comment magazine.
Right, and even archives from the Maggie Flanagan studio about his specific acting technique.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. So let's start with the headline. The shocking final confession. Because if you ask anyone on the street to name a Robert Duvall movie, what do they say?
They say The Godfather. Immediately, no hesitation, they picture Tom Hagen, the lawyer in the sharp suit, whispering reason into the Don's ear.
Of course. I mean, it's arguably one of the greatest films ever made.
Absolutely.
But here's the shocker. Duvall confessed that The Godfather, it wasn't his favorite. He didn't even see it as his best work.
No way.
He called the 1989 miniseries Lonesome Dove his Hamlet.
His Hamlet. I mean, that is such a bold claim for an actor to make.
It really is.
Usually when you ask a star their favorite role, they give you that diplomatic, oh, I love them all like my children answer, Right.
They don't want to alienate the fans of their other big hits.
Yeah.
Duvall did not care about that. He was quoted saying, "I may be the only actor who has a favorite role." He said that after playing Gus McCrae, the Texas Ranger, he felt he could retire right then and there because he'd finally done something.
Oh, wow.
He even called it the Godfather of Westerns.
Okay, I think we really need to dig into why he felt that way, because it tells you everything about who he was as an artist.
I agree.
In The Godfather, as Tom Hagen, he was an observer. He was constrained. He was the stepson of the family, sort of always on the periphery of the real power.
But in Lonesome Dove?
As Gus McCrae, he was the heart and soul. He was loud, romantic, dangerous, funny. He was everything.
It was the freedom, right? He got to be the cowboy.
It was the completeness of the character. Duvall spent his whole life chasing truth in acting, and I think Gus McCrae allowed him to show the entire spectrum of a human being, not just the repressed lawyer.
To understand why that mattered so much, you have to look at where he started. Because he wasn't some studio plant.
No, he was a Navy brat, born in San Diego in 1931, son of a rear admiral. But the part of his history that absolutely blows my mind is the 1950s in New York City.
The roommates.
The roommates. It's legendary.
Picture this. It's the mid-50s, cold water flats, gritty streets. And living together in this chaotic apartment are 3 guys, Robert Duvall, Dustin Hoffman, and Gene Hackman.
The statistical probability of that is basically 0. That is 3 of the greatest actors of the 20th century fighting over the same bathroom.
It sounds like the setup to a joke, but it defined them. They used to hang out at a place called Cromwell's Drugstore. And they weren't talking about fame or money. They were obsessed with the craft.
Specifically, they were obsessed with Marlon Brando.
Oh, completely. Duvall said later that in any given conversation, they'd mention Brando's name 25 times. They were dissecting him, trying to figure out how to be that real.
And you have to think about the dynamic between them. Hoffman was the funny, neurotic one. Hackman was the tough, explosive one.
And Duvall was the observer, the quiet one just soaking it all in.
Right, and they were all chasing this new style of acting, reacting against that polished, kind of fake golden age of Hollywood.
Which brings us to the technique. The sources mention he studied under Sanford Meisner. Now, we hear the method thrown around a lot, but Meisner is different.
Very different, and this is key to understanding Duvall. The Strasberg method is about memory recall. You think about your dog dying to cry in a scene.
Right.
Meisner thought that was self-indulgent. His whole thing was truthful behavior under imaginary circumstances.
So what does that actually mean?
Duvall called it moving from ink to behavior. You don't plan how you're going to say a line. You just listen to the other person and you react genuinely.
That explains so much about his performance as Tom Hagen.
How so?
Well, think about those scenes in The Godfather. The room is screaming, Sonny Corleone is throwing things, and Duvall is just sitting there, still. He isn't acting calm. He's genuinely listening and reacting with stillness.
Exactly. He isn't trying to steal the scene. He is trying to be the reality of the scene. That's why he was the anti-star. He wasn't flashy like Pacino or Brando. He was the glue.
But don't mistake that glue status for weakness. This is the man who stood up to Paramount. When The Godfather Part 3 came around, they offered him a check, and he said no.
That moment is historic. Can you imagine the pressure? It's the biggest franchise in the world. Pacino's back, Keaton's back, and they offered Duvall a salary that was way less than Pacino's.
And it wasn't just about the money, was it? It was about respect.
It was about principle. He basically said, look, I carry the weight of this story. If you don't value that, I'm not doing it. And he walked. He just left the Corleone family behind.
That is the cowboy spirit right there. He knew his worth. And looking at the tributes pouring in since Sunday, it's clear the industry knew his worth too. Al Pacino called him a once-in-a-generation talent.
Robert De Niro, who doesn't say much, just said, God bless Bobby. Even Adam Sandler, who worked with him recently in Hustle, called him funny as hell. That just speaks to his range.
He walked away from the Corleone family, but that wasn't the only time he went to extremes for a role. Wait until you hear what he did to win his only Oscar. It involves a 600-mile road trip and a tape recorder.
Oh, it's the ultimate example of his dedication. It's wild.
If you're loving these deep dives into Hollywood history, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead.
Okay, but before the Oscar, we have to talk about the smell.
You can't talk about Duvall without the napalm.
Never.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
It is.
Iconic. Apocalypse Now, 1979. He's L-tier Kilgore. And this is the polar opposite of the quiet lawyer. This guy is pure chaos.
What's fascinating is what was happening on set. That shoot was a legendary disaster.
Yeah.
Typhoons, heart attacks, the budget was out of control.
A total mess.
Yeah, and other actors were taking weeks to find their characters. Coppola said Duvall shows up, and he was hot after 1 or 2 takes.
He just turned it on.
Instantly, he walked off the helicopter, strutted across the beach, delivered the lines, and that was it. The work was already done.
But even with a character that loud, he was fighting for nuance. I read that he was actually furious about a scene that got cut.
Yes. There was a scene where Kilgore saves a Vietnamese baby during the beach assault. Duvall fought for that scene because he didn't want Kilgore to just be a caricature. He wanted the contradiction.
The man who orders the napalm strike, but also saves the child.
That's the Meisner training again. Human beings are contradictory. Cartoons are one note. He refused to be a cartoon.
And that refusal is exactly what led him to Tender Mercies in 1983. This is the role that finally got him the Oscar.
Max Sledge. A washed-up, alcoholic country singer. It's such a quiet, internal performance.
And the prep work is legendary.
Yeah.
He didn't just hire a dialect coach in L.A.
No, he got in a van and drove. He drove 680 miles all around Texas. He was literally hunting for a sound.
Just listening to people.
Yep, in
Cafes and gas stations.
Exactly. He found a man in a small town whose voice he liked, just a regular guy. And Duvall had this stranger read the entire script into a tape recorder.
No.
Yes. And then he just drove around listening to this guy's voice on a loop until it seeped into his bones.
And music. He insisted on singing his own songs. He didn't lip sync.
Which is so risky. If you can't carry the tune, the whole movie falls apart. But he pulled it off because he didn't just play a country singer, he became one.
And he won Best Actor for it. I love that he accepted the Oscar wearing a cowboy tuxedo.
It was such a statement. Like he was telling Hollywood, this is who I really am. You know, the Guinness Book of World Records once named him the world's most versatile actor.
And they weren't wrong. I mean, the spread is insane. He played Joseph Stalin in an HBO movie, terrifying, a robot in George Lucas's THX 1138, a preacher in The Apostle.
He bridged generations. He was in To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962, playing Boo Radley with no lines, and he was working with Adam Sandler in 2022. He connected the old studio system to the streaming era.
He conquered the Oscars and the box office, but his most surprising plot twist happened off-screen. And it involves a bakery in Argentina.
It really does sound like a screenplay, but it's all true.
But before the romance, we have to talk about Duvall the Maverick. He wasn't just an actor waiting for the phone to ring.
No, he was a filmmaker, and that's a huge part of his legacy. You have to look at The Apostle from 1997. It was his passion project.
A story about a flawed Pentecostal preacher on the run.
And Hollywood wanted nothing to do with it. They were terrified of it. Too religious, too dark, too complex.
So he pulled a Duvall.
He did. He spent $5 million of his own money to finance it.
That is betting the farm. Literally. $5 million in the 90s was a fortune. He wrote it, he directed it, he starred in it.
And get this, he wrote the script in 6 weeks. But it took him 15 years to get the movie made.
15 years. Wow.
He carried that story for a decade and a half. That's how much he believed in it.
And it paid off. He got another Oscar nomination for it. It proved he wasn't just an actor for hire, he was a storyteller.
And that storytelling instinct bled into his personal life, too. Which brings us to that bakery in Buenos Aires.
The romantic confession. This is the story that makes me smile every time. He met his wife, Luciana Pedraza, just in a bakery.
Picture the scene. It's 1997. He's there for a coffee or whatever, and he meets this beautiful Argentine woman. But here's the shocking fact the tabloids loved.
They share the same birthday, January 5th.
Right, but they were born 41 years apart.
A huge age gap.
Ah.
But they were married for over 2 decades. And by all accounts, it was a true partnership.
It really was, and they bonded over a very intense shared passion.
The tango. I absolutely did not pin Robert Duvall as a dancer.
Oh, he was obsessed. He called the Argentine tango a profound art form. He loved it so much that he converted a barn at his estate in Virginia into a full-blown tango dance hall.
Just imagine that. You're driving through rural Virginia, and inside a barn, Robert Duvall is perfecting the tango.
It just speaks to his zest for life. He never slowed down. He worked well into his 90s.
He really didn't. In 2014, he did The Judge with Robert Downey Jr.
Which made him the oldest Best Supporting Actor nominee ever at the time. He was 84, going toe-to-toe with Iron Man and stealing scenes.
And he just kept going. He had this quote that I love. I try to think that I have potential and possibility until the day I stop working.
That's a beautiful philosophy. He didn't see age as the stopping point, just another imaginary circumstance to behave truthfully in.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Because as we wrap up, we have to ask the big question, so what?
Right. Why does Robert Duvall matter in the grand scheme of cinema history?
We've talked about the shocking final confession that Lonesome Dove was his favorite. But I think the real confession of his career was that he didn't care about the fame at all.
I completely agree. The shock isn't a scandal. The shock is that an actor can be that successful without the ego. He proved that truth was the only thing that mattered.
He passed away peacefully on Sunday at his home in Middleburg, surrounded by loved ones, probably near that tango barn.
You know, if we look at the bigger picture, Duvall was a bridge. He connected the polished past with the gritty future. But more than that, he taught us the value of silence. In a world that's constantly screaming for attention, he commanded the room just by listening.
He was the guy who made you believe he was the cowboy or the lawyer. You never watched him and thought, oh, there's Robert Duvall acting. You just saw the person.
Exactly. And that is becoming so rare. We live in an era of personal branding where the actor is often bigger than the role. Duvall just disappeared.
Duvall once said, leave me alone, was his best advice for directors. He didn't want to be micromanaged.
He wanted the space to find the truth.
And that raises a provocative thought for you listening right now. In a world of overproduced content and micromanaged stars, perhaps the real shock is that someone could be so successful simply by demanding the space to be real. It makes you wonder, what masterpieces are we missing today? Because no one is willing to just leave the artist alone.
That is a question worth thinking about.
You've been listening to StarScope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.